Please subscribe and hit the like button.
Well, good evening and welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. I'm hearing a lot of crackles on the end of my line, so I don't know how well we're going to be able to maintain a connection here. We're a little different this evening, not that it matters to anybody else, but having moved to daylight savings time for the rest of you rascals out there and the contiguous United States, we down here in the nether regions of the world don't have daylight savings time. We're too close to the equator for it to make much of a difference. So we're starting an hour later than we would normally start. Something did happen between now and the previous show. We have changed regimes in the White House. One would assume we had changed regimes. It looked on election night like the pollsters were all wrong again, and even the Donald himself came on to say that he had won. But such was not the case. It now appears that the 4 states that he needed to sweep to win the Electoral College, he may lose some or all of them. It's an interesting twist because while Donald Trump continues to be a narcissist, while he says lots of things that just cause a person to cringe, well, he is certainly not the most articulate or brightest person in the history of the U.S. presidency. He did some things that were fairly remarkable. And the thing that I care about the most, which is Israel, he forged peace treaties that under any normal circumstances would have caused him to win multiple Nobel Peace Prizes. But of course, the media now and institutions like that are so liberal they wouldn't even consider him. He moved the embassy, the United States Embassy, to the place where it belongs, to Jerusalem. He clearly gave Israel credit over the fake Palestinians. And he made a genuine attempt to reestablish the United States economically in an appropriate footing so that we were just not the doormat of the world in terms of the way that we engaged in international trade. Those things said, he hugely increased the U.S. military, which was a disastrous decision. And he had a very difficult time trying to understand how to respond to the coronavirus. I don't think there's any question that he could have been the only significant world leader to have done nothing regarding the coronavirus. And had he done so, it would have been a resounding success compared to other countries. Well, I do advocate wearing masks for corona in public situations inside of buildings. And while I advocate washing one's hands for coronavirus, everything we know about this virus is such that while it is more contagious by a slight amount than the common flu, and while it made it through the summer, which the common flu typically does not, it's not a lot more lethal. And it certainly was not wise to shut down economies and deprive people of liberty. And yet that's what the world's response was, and most governors' response was. And that his unwillingness to dictate the total forfeiture of liberty and livelihood was also an extraordinarily positive thing in a world that it doesn't have much of it. If I were to ask you, who's your favorite world leader, and there's 200 and some odd of them in terms of countries, and of course more in other fields, I think you'd have a tough time coming up with a name or two.
True.
I know I would.
Mm-hmm.
And the man that was elected, he has dementia. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's not something that's funny. He has dementia. He gets caught mid-sentence and just streams out an incoherent list of words. The woman that he asked to be his running mate is the most liberal senator or congressman in Washington, D.C. America is going to take a very hard left turn at a time where the nation needed desperately to become more conservative. Now, I'm not surprised in the sense of we don't have much time left until we enter the time of Jacob's troubles, and so it's not surprising that America would repudiate the progress that was made relative to Israel, that it would return to the stance of being antagonistic to Israel during the Obama administration, or that it would return to the desperate liberal politics of wealth redistribution and entitlements for all, Obamacare, with Obama's running mate. Because that's where we are. And what I think is the single most important takeaway from this, and if I sound a bit sad, I am a bit sad in the sense that while I am not just apolitical, I'm anti-political. I am not a patriot. I do not love my country. I still recognize that the little shred of America that has remained is still the freest nation on earth. The nation that still has the greatest opportunity, the least racist nation on earth. And, of course, people are making a mockery of that. It is the nation that for a long time had the greatest economic opportunity as well, both social and economic opportunity. And I'm a huge advocate of freedom and of free enterprise. And I'm an advocate of conservatism in the sense of less government is better than more government from Yahweh's perspective. So this is a sad day from those viewpoints. And here's a nation that will have squandered something in the range of $8 trillion on the coronavirus that is not nearly over, and put itself into a depression. And do so deliberately, have done so deliberately. And now you have an exceedingly liberal cast of characters moving into the White House. It's a recipe for economic meltdown of even less responsibility. Please.
Well, if you'd asked me last week who was going to win, I would have told you Biden. And I based it on something because of our timeline, our understanding of the timeline. And he takes office on January the 21st. 8-year, in normal cases, if he were president were to serve for 8 years, that would bring into year 2029.
I don't think he'll live that long. I don't think he'll.
I don't think he'll last two. But that's,
no, and which is even worse because then you have Kamala Harris. It's like somebody taking out Trump. It would have been vastly worse because then you'd have a religious nutcase as president.
Yeah. But the point being that it has to go that way. 7.5 years. In about 7.5 years, we're looking at Towrah.
Yeah.
And what is going to drive the millions of Yehudim that live here in this country? What will frighten them enough to go home? And the speech, I listened to one speech the whole election, and that was the one that Biden did on lifting. He said his first thing he was going to do is lift the restrictions on Muslim immigration to the U.S.
That was the first speech that he gave after.
Was it? That's the only one I read.
After it was obvious that he was going to prevail and win the nomination.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
we know where that leads. I think Thomas Jefferson was the last.
Look what's
president
happening in
who read
Europe
the
right
Torah.
now. Look at what's happening in Europe now. Well,
So,
in France in particular.
What else would scare people so much that they want to get the heck out of Dodge? I mean, head to Israel. Well, obviously terrorism, because they know what they're going to do, and they know who they're going to do it to, and they know where they're going to attack, and they're merciless. And the liberals in the country, the people that follow this concept of government does everything, they're basically pretty cowardly people. I mean, they've got us so locked down, Craig, in California. I can't work. I'm not allowed to work. I've been sent letters from that I cannot open a studio again. I cannot go to work at the city places where we used to teach.
Which the liberals love. They have total control over your life and total control over business. But the very thing they could never manage, they have total control over. Yeah. And the few liberals that got exceedingly lucky with their tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they're playing God as to they determine what you can and cannot say, who lives and dies online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a world that has gone the antithesis of what Yahowah was. That Yahowah's issues with human governance are all being exacerbated by liberalism. He is a huge advocate for freedom.
Absolutely.
And the government is less freedom. He is a big advocate for you get to keep what you make. And he made it really clear that one of the problems of government is they're going to tax you to death. Well, welcome to liberalism. God levels the playing field regarding land and debt and servitude every 50 years, so long as you're guided by the ethics of his Torah. But he does not have a wealth redistribution plan. But that's liberalism. God is stunningly opposed to multiculturalism. Welcome to liberal politics. God is hugely opposed to political correctness, where lies must be accepted for a person to be accepted. He's an advocate of the truth. God is opposed to somebody being allied with a political or religious scheme. And today, politics, particularly liberal, well, I'd say both sides of the aisle, but there's more liberals than there are conservatives. More people have been dumbed down to the point that they have done as our founding fathers surmised would happen if a democracy arose from the republic that they had established, which is they will vote for the candidate that robs the productive to lavish entitlements upon them. And they're absolutely ignorant in terms of business and in terms of economics. And I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work. God wants us to be individually responsible. He wants us to have access to good quality information. He does not want us to be susceptible to bribes, which happen far more in liberal and large institutions than happens in conservative ones. He wants us to be free, and so we are in a world that is the antithesis of what he envisioned.
Yeah.
And today, Leah was sharing with me something that I thought was really interesting. If you go back 50 years, the thing that parents were most concerned about, in terms of their sons and daughters marrying. The preference was that their son and daughter not marry outside of their race. And then second, they didn't want their son and daughter to marry outside of their religion. And they weren't very much concerned as to whether or not their son or daughter married outside of their politics. Today, parents are nonplussed. They don't care at all if somebody marries outside of their race. Oh, that's fine with me. They don't care if somebody marries someone of a different religion. That's fine with me, too. But now, by far, some 80% of parents don't want their son or daughter to marry someone outside of their politics. Interesting. Mm-hmm. And so politics has become the institution that more people adhere to. You know, I am a Republican, I am a Democrat, I am a whatever. And it's true worldwide that the uprisings in most countries are now along political lines. They're not along religious lines. There's a religion that continues to inspire terrorism, but most of the uprisings are around political lines. And so people are adhering more to religion. And the myth of liberalism is that the most productive people don't pay their fair share, and that they have somehow done something inappropriate, that business is bad, and that government is good, and that it's the responsibility of government to take from productive people and to give it to more deserving individuals who've done nothing for it. And it's stunningly counterproductive. It has never succeeded anywhere in the world. It's always failed. The more socialistic, the more communistic a country becomes, the more it decays economically, and the more it decays in terms of freedom. So it is always costing. And yet people just today are not smart enough to study their history, to study economics, to come to the realization that what they have just done is an utter and complete disaster. But yes, we are. We are just 7-8 years away from the time of Jacob's troubles, and therefore we ought to expect America to continue to decay rapidly. And that those who crippled the country, depriving people of liberty and livelihood, that they would come to the forefront, that the people would say that those who responded the worst to Corona ought to be put in power. Now, I am indeed perplexed, but that is where we find ourselves, and we're also in a position where it is, when Trump won the previous election, I was shocked because he lost in the popular vote, but the game in America is so stacked against a conservative, with the entire West Coast not even being up for
that's a given. When the ministry set up shop, they got them.
Yeah, it's a given. And the Northeast is a given. It's not even contested anymore. And you have even states down like Virginia, which used to be what we call a red state, and now it's not even contested. You look at Washington, D.C., and it's something in the range of 85% liberal. So a Democrat starts with darn near 200 electoral votes. almost impossible for a conservative to win. And I was shocked that Trump won, and I don't think we'll ever see another.
No.
So, not to say that Trump was a conservative, because I don't think he was. And clearly, I think Donald Trump was not a man who deserved one term in office, much less 2 terms in office. But just as the election where he ran against Hillary Clinton, she was the greater of 2 evils. I think
most
now,
disliked.
yes, I'm quite convinced that Biden and Warren are the greater of these 2 evils. Well, enough for
on that cheery note.
Yes. One of my positives of this whole thing is, of course, I haven't voted in a very long time, and I don't vote. I'm not going to cast my lot in with either side. I don't support any political leader, and I just talk about politics for the purpose of helping people understand the nature of economics, the nature of international relations, the nature of military adventurism, and the consequence of these things. Because I think that understanding them is important to understanding why God does not want us to trust and rely upon man. But other than to expose and condemn them, we just really ought not have anything to do with politics. Here now in the U.S. Virgin Islands, I can't vote for a national election. There is no senator. There's no congresswoman. There's actually one congresswoman, but she can't vote. So she's just a waste of time. And there are I think it's 16 senators, but they're territory senators. A waste of time too. And there is no politics here. You have a popularity contest between young African American Democrats with little posters that say, vote for me. But there isn't one iota of difference between them. And so we're in a unique position in that regard that the politics here is monolithic. And as you might expect, there's essentially no business here. As you might expect, the roads are almost impassable. As you might expect, the utilities are more missed than hit. As you might expect, life is expensive here and nothing is made here. As you might expect, the murder rate here is about 5 times the rate across the continental United States. So that is the consequence of having only a liberal alternative.
Now, why again are you there?
Because it is a very long way, thousands of miles from the contiguous United States, where I think life is worse. I think you at least here at the east end of this island, I am away from it all. I wake up and I see gorgeous sunsets uninterrupted by anything other than just the sky and the sea. I watch the sun go down the same way. It is a perpetual summer. The water, the ocean, the beaches are gorgeous. The people here on the East End are exceedingly nice. And so, I'm able to buy a home that overlooks the sea for 10% of what that same home would cost in a place like Florida. So I'm here for for those reasons. It's as far away as I can be from the United States and still recognize that U.S. law
Prevails.
Prevails here, and it has benefits. You know, I was in the British Virgin Islands, but you have almost no rights as a non-belonger. I have the wrong skin color. And most of the places in the Caribbean, my ethnicity would cause me to be deprived of rights. And so it's not a particularly there's not a whole lot of options in terms of where to live. You know, I happen to like, in terms of the people and the natural beauty, New Zealand, but that government is crazy and liberal. Yes, I like Australia in a way, but you know, it's a long way to go to try to live, and this is I can be as far removed from it as possible without the ensuing hassles. That's why I'm here. And by the way, I'm actually delighted to be here. I went out today and I was marveled at the conditions of the roads and really the difference in the lack of variety that you would normally find in the stores. But because of the fact it's a U.S. zip codes and U.S. mail system, you know, and even though I don't like the company, I can click my way to success with Amazon and get most anything that I need. So, you know, I'm suffering here having my cappuccino, wearing a pair of shorts and a T-shirt. In my normal outfit is a pair of flaps, shorts, and a T-shirt. And you know, I want to go fish for my dinner tomorrow. That's why I'm here. It's an inspiring place to write with minimal hassles.
Yes.
So
I'm a walk across and not turn off my fireplace.
Yeah. So yeah, where those of you who are moving to winter, you know, it was in the high 80s here today. It will dip down to the high 70s tonight, and it will be the same tomorrow. And it will rain just enough to keep everything green. So there are advantages. You know, and I happen to like, I like warm. I do. I like it. I like the sea. I think the sea is beautiful. I like beaches. I like being able to have a panoramic view. I like being able to see rolling hills and trees and sky. And if you're living in a place that has very low density and yet exceedingly comfortable weather, that's a nice way to live. You know, I guess there's folks that, for reasons that I've never understood, like when it gets down to minus 20 degrees. You know, based on the wind chill, and the wind is biting, and you have to wear 18 layers of clothes to go outside and scrape ice off of your car. People who like that. I'm not one of them. You know, and when I lived in South Florida, while I liked it a lot, you know, high 90s with high 90% humidity, that gets a bit, that'll sap you. So it's nice when, you know, okay, so it's going to get to the low 90s, high 80s, but the humidity is in the, you know, mid 50 to 60%, and there's always a nice breeze, and so it's comfortable, and there's nobody to impress you. That's also a real positive. You know, it's a place where if I go to lunch, I know somebody or multiple people every time I sit down. And I don't know them because of who I am. It's just I know them because this is a small close-knit community.
Yeah.
You just, after a while, you get to know most everybody. You know, you're walking through the store. If there's 20 people in the store, you're going to know 5 of them. It's nice. You know, I have more friends here among fewer people than at any other time in my life.
Good for you.
Yeah, so you know, there are lovely aspects of being in a place where the roads have become almost impassable, where there is no business opportunity, and there's very little freedom of choice when it comes to politics, and where the government is counterproductive in its entirety. All right. We ended our last program on Yahshua, Yah frees and saves, Isaiah 51:4. We turn to this particular section of Isaiah because it proves something that I thought was fundamental to understanding Yahweh's plan. And it is something that I deduced very early on in our quest to know Yahweh and to share the nature of his plan, what he is offering and expects in return. And it's one of those things that I thought was exceedingly profound. I don't know how, because I talk about it a lot, and I very seldom see it repeated. So it may be something that doesn't resonate with other people, but I personally think that it's exceedingly important. And Yahshua 51 affirms this conclusion, which is that we began life in Eden, and we will return to Eden. That means that God shared the story of what occurred in Eden and the kind of relationship he had with Adam and why he created Towrah, so that we would know what he intends to provide in terms of eternity. No religion, no politics, no hierarchy of organizations. It was a very simple, engaged relationship where Yahweh was not omnipresent. He was not omniscient. When Adam chose to hide from Yahweh, God didn't know where he was. God created Towrah because of the fact that he didn't want to smother Adam, suffocate him. He knew that too much of a good thing was just too much. That Adam also needed some time apart from God, because even as the children of Israel, after being oppressed by Egypt and freed by Yahweh, and Yahweh spoke to them lovingly from the top of Mount Torah, and they said, "Okay, enough already. The booming voice and the bright lights, it's too much for us." Even when we're elevated so that we go from being in God's likeness to be very much like God, 24/7 of Yahweh would even be too much for us. And Yahweh knows it. And so you see snippets of where Yahweh engages with man and yet gives man the opportunity to do his own thing. But yet Yahweh realized that we're not designed to be alone. That's why I was kidding with Leah this evening. I said, don't think that you're going to be able to sneak away in eternity. I'm going to find you. I've got too much invested in you. But you just go gallivant on your own. Of course, I'm a huge advocate for freedom, so I'm kidding somewhat, tongue-in-cheek, but not much. You ask why I'm here? Because I've got all I need. I'm involved in this. It's like the ultimate gift was just arrived one day on my doorstep. Completely unsolicited. Here's the most perfect woman in the world. Shows up on my doorstep. And so what does a fellow really need beyond the ideal perfect mate? I mean, realistically, nothing. So, and yet, rather than her taking me away from Yahweh, most of our conversations are about Torah and Yahweh. So it's a marvelous thing. I think to a large degree that's what Yahweh intended with the Towrah, so that we would have an opportunity to celebrate life collectively, and so everything in Eden is designed to show that Yah loves life. When He gives us peeks into their daily existence, Yahweh is not just introducing life to Adam. He's enjoying how Adam engages with life. It wasn't a let's name the animals game. Oh, let's call that one a platypus and we'll call that one an aardvark. No. It was he wanted to see how Adam interacted with life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most interesting things is that one of the animals outside the garden clearly was Homo sapien, man,
mm-hmm.
and therefore woman.
That's an amazing thought.
Unequivocally. And so one of the animals, two of the animals, female and male, that Yahweh introduced Adam to and allowed Adam to interact with were the humans, but without an asama. And they were not satisfied for Adam, and it's why Yahweh created Towrah with an asama. And so it is such a beautiful picture of what occurred, and particularly Yahweh's insistence that we work. We began the show talking about liberal versus conservative politics. Well, you live in a liberal state, and you are deprived of the opportunity to work. And not working is rewarded. Yahweh takes a very different view. He values work. He works, and He wants us to work. Work is constantly used in the discussion of the garden. Even when we enter the Millennial Shabbat and return to Eden, we're going to have jobs. And the reason for that is if you're not working, if you're not making a contribution, if you don't have something to contribute, you lose your value. You lose yourself a sense of worth. You lose a sense of purpose. If you are a beneficiary of everything in a relationship and make no contribution to it, I'm sorry, you're a waste of breath. I am very insistent on presenting what is Yahweh offering and what does He expect in return. It is a relationship. If you don't want to provide what He is expecting in return, there is no offer. And so God wants us to work. And talk about work. Look how much effort is required to accurately translate, amplify, consider, deduce insights from His testimony. It's work.
Real work.
Now,
absolutely.
The thing that you contribute the most to it is time, and of course, you inherit an eternity of time. So the one thing that you have to invest the most into it, you get back, by in an infinite degree.
Mm-hmm.
But it this passage in Yeshaya 51 states unequivocally that Yahweh intends to return the earth back to the conditions at Eden. That means there will be no religion. All religious structures will be destroyed. There will be no pollution. There will be no political institutions or governments or countries of any kind. Those people who were religious and political will cease to exist. There'll be no conspiracies. Life will not be abused. Life will be celebrated. And we will have the opportunity, when we wish, to be directly in God's presence, talking with Him, walking with Him, and yet still have the opportunity to explore on our own. That is what God is creating for us. If you like that, great. He has
Where do I sign?
5 terms and conditions. If you don't like that, if you don't like camping out, if you don't like being engaged, if you like your religion, you like your politics, you like your country, then go away. So when you realize this, what you've got then is 6 steps that we're invited to walk that return us back to Eden. Why do you think God called the 7th step Sukkah, to camp out?
Yeah.
It should have been obvious that we're on a journey to return to where we began. We're being called back home. Listen, God named the place Gan, which is a protective enclosure that's conducive to life, of Eden, of great joy, of total and complete satisfaction, of happiness. It was a luxurious existence. And so that is what God is offering. Now, we're not told that Adam and Chava had palaces. You know, there were no gilded ceilings and gold-plated faucets. But my guess is that, you asked why I was here, my showers here are outdoors. You know how nice it is to take a shower in the sun and the breeze? It's very common in tropical islands. Showers are put outdoors. My guess is they had one. My guess is that they were running around with even less than I'm wearing, and they weren't cold. It was warm, pleasant. And so that's the kind of environment that God's going to take us to. Now, we know that He is reestablishing an entire universe. We know that we have this great universe here. We know that God celebrates life. There must be life all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And someone wrote me in the last week or so saying that since it was their interpretation that God's greatest creation was the language of DNA, which is a 3-dimensional, at least 3-dimensional. It probably is more dimensional than that. We just can't see it. But it is a multidimensional language. And one of the reasons that He may have created DNA is not only because He then could have fun creating platypuses and aardvarks, but so that we could. It's a written language that we will likely have the opportunity to manipulate and to create and celebrate life. There is no indication that God's going to be any different than He was, which means that if you're on Adam in eternity, Chava is going to be pretty. And there's no indication that you won't enjoy one another's company. If you're going to be in eternity, the life is something that's going to be celebrated. And so is the time with God. And this idea of us being able to go off to some solar system and explore planets and not just celebrate life, but explore there and then come back to share what we have learned is highly likely because it depicts what we witness in the garden. So that's why we turn to this. This is the concluding statement that we're going to consider from it. And it says, if this is what you want, if you want to re-enter Eden, then choose to pay attention and then respond. Kashab. Well, it's amazing how many Hebrew words there are in encouraging us to listen, to observe, to pay attention, such that we can respond appropriately. Choose to pay attention and then respond. I say choose because it was written in the imperative mood, which conveys volition in the second person.
Yeah.
It was written in the hiphil stem, whereby the object, which would be us, and it's my peoples who he's speaking to, the object is put into action by the nature of that verb based upon the subject's contribution. The subject here is God. He's speaking directly to his people. So he is enabling us not only to pay attention, he is enabling us to respond should we choose to do so. So choose to pay attention and then respond. Kashab. Of your own volition, you should listen attentively, and engage based upon what you hear. To your political leaders. No, I didn't say that. To your religious leaders. No, he didn't say that.
No.
To the media spokespeople. No. To your teacher. No. To your mommy and daddy. No. To your neighbors? No. To your husbands and wives? No.
Not even that.
It says, choose to pay attention and then respond to me. That's the thing. If you're a real prophet, Yahweh is speaking through you in first person. Choose to pay attention and then respond to me. Yahweh speaking. Ani, my people, my family. The single greatest, simplest piece of advice in the universe. And yet, if you're going to listen to Yahweh, you have to listen to what he said through his prophets, through whom he speaks in first person. Is there any place in the God-forsaken Christian New Testament where Yahweh speaks in first person? And the entirety of it?
I don't think so.
No. There isn't a single place where Yahweh speaks in first person. How can you listen to Yahweh unless you listen to what he had to say, and he only speaks to us through his prophets? Throw away your New Testament. Throw away your Quran. Throw away your Book of Mormon. There isn't a single passage in any of them where Yahweh speaks to his people in first person. Now let's be clear too. When Yahweh uses my people, Ani, my people, he's only speaking to Goy, Gentiles, who have decided that they want to collectively be Yisrael and Yehudah.
Yes. Understood.
Otherwise, he's speaking to Yisrael and Yehudah. You're either, to be God's people, you are either Yisrael and Yehudah, And one of those who are part of Yisrael and Yahudah, who is actually listening to him and this covenant, or you are a Goyim who is elected to be with Yisrael and Yahudah. We had some people for years who claimed to be covenant, that were part of not only this program, but communicated routinely with through and with many of us who are anti-Semitic, like Jews.
It's very, very hard.
I am sorry, but if you don't like Israel, now, and I'm going to be here clear too, there are a lot of Jews that Yahweh doesn't like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Israelis that Yahweh doesn't like. The ones playing religious dress up and pretending to be all godly, God can't stand them.
Can't stand them. Yeah.
Nope. Those who are whose politics dominate their viewpoints, can't stand them. But nonetheless, his people are Yisrael, of which Yahudah is a subset, and he's saying if you want to enter Eden and you are Yisrael or Yahudah, you are his people, there's only one way to do that.
Same way.
Choose to listen to him and respond.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and by the way, we talk about what role we may be playing based upon what the prophet Yahshua had to say. It is abundantly clear that a Towrah was predicted by Yahweh through the prophet Yahshua that's going to be enlightened and empowered by the Spirit of Yahweh.
Set apart Spirit.
But he didn't convey anything that he has to say. He's conveying what he has heard Yahweh say.
And rightfully so.
It's not listen to some insignificant stem. No, it's listen to Yahweh. It's just that there aren't a whole lot of voices out there that are presenting Yahweh's words such that it is not only easier to listen to him or forthright to listen to him, but that you can hear what he has to say more accurately and completely than what we're doing. Hear what I have to say, people of other nations who have gathered unto me, Leom Ani, other ethnicities who consider themselves my people by coming together with me. Because indeed, you can rely on this key. A Torah teaching will come forth from me. It's pretty hard for someone to justify a New Testament based upon repudiating the Torah and replacing the old law with a gospel of grace if God says, in the end, when I reestablish Eden, I'm going to present to you a Torah teaching, my Torah teaching. He can't do what he's doing with Eden, to take us back to where we begun with his Torah, where he is reestablishing his Torah in us, his Torah teaching in us, if he somehow repudiated or replaced his Torah. No. We're coming back to where we began with the Torah. But it's also important to recognize that God isn't saying, you want to listen to me because I am, or choose to listen to me in particular because I am approaching with a new law. Do you ever have a judge say, it would be a really good idea if you choose of your own volition to adhere to all of the laws of this land, which I have in this, would have no room in the courtroom if you just had all the laws of that land printed. But no, the laws are imposed. You have no choice. You can't go to the judge and say, hey, judge, I chose not to abide by that law. You know, the country was kind enough to ask if I wanted to or I didn't want to and how I wanted to respond to this law, and I just chose to opt out. I don't like the law of the income tax. I don't like the law of the speed limit. I don't like the law of I can't bribe whomever I want. I'm sorry. Laws aren't established for you to have a choice. And so God's not saying, I want you to choose to listen to me. I want you to of your own free will, hear what I have to say, and then impose some kind of a commandment or establish a law. No, it's Torah, it's teaching, it's guidance, it's direction. When somebody gives you direction, you have free will. You can choose to follow those directions or go in a different direction, right? You can ignore guidance, you can accept guidance. So, Yahweh is offering us a Torah teaching. When I translated this, I translated Torah, lowercase t, and teaching, guidance, also lowercase. I do not think that Yahweh is reestablishing in Eden Torah capital T. Was there a Torah capital T in the garden?
No.
Absolutely not. Was there Torah instructions in the garden?
Well, only given by Yahweh, verbally.
Absolutely. Yahweh gave Torah instructions. He said, hey, listen, you got this beautiful garden here, and I got everything that grows here in this garden is good for you to eat. Eat whatever you want. I said, I've got this other tree here in this garden. That from that tree, if you make a habit of consistently eating from it, there's going to be a consequence that you're not going to like very much. And that is that it's going to rob you of your life. He did not establish a law and say, we have a law here posted on the big sign, said, eat from that tree and die. That's not what he said. He didn't say you can't eat from the tree. He didn't say, I command you not to eat from the tree. He didn't say any of that.
No.
You can eat from any tree in the garden. I just want you to know on this particular tree, which I'm going to explain it to you. If you eat from it, there's going to be this consequence if you do it consistently. And that is that it's going to kill you. So there was no formal Torah in the garden, but there was absolutely Torah, lowercase t. We're returning to the garden. Therefore, we are going to return to God's instructions, lowercase t. The reason this is so important is there is nothing in the Torah that will be valuable to us relative to our relationship with Yahweh or our ability to get the most out of life as we Eden the universe. And there's many things in the Torah that make us very sad.
Yes.
You know, when Yahweh gets frustrated with humankind for being so belligerent, you know, and he's really clear. He says that the wickedness, the wrongdoing, the malignant nature of man became rock exclusive. Pervasive to the point that it was a monolithic mindset, and that it existed every day, all day, without fail. You know, we have to have guidance to be effective. The universe, just the earth is a very big place and a very complex place where if we don't know what is productive and what is counterproductive, good and bad, if we don't know that and we don't get good guidance from God, we're sure to screw it up. And mankind did outside the garden. As a matter of fact, one of the things you very quickly learn, the fall of man did not occur in the garden. It occurred outside of the garden. And so we need guidance. And when we're going to explore this marvelous universe, we're going to need guidance in the universe, the ability to approach stars and the solar system and travel through space and time far more than we need it now. And so God has to give us Torah teaching, but he doesn't want to sadden us because we're going back to the place of pure joy. And if we read about God's encounter with Pharaoh, we're not going to be very happy. If we read about God's sadness of having created man because of how badly we act, not going to be very happy. That's not going to bring us pleasure, nor is God going to want to be reminded of it. For us to read about how after being freed from Mitzrayim, the children of Israel, even with Aaron's participation, went and made a goddamn golden calf idol and worshipped it. It's just revolting. It's nauseating. If you read about the behavior of Yehuda and Yisrael, it's disgusting. If you read about the behavior of those countries that interacted with it, it's even more disgusting. This is not something, it's something that we in this world need to hear, because we need to know how rotten human civilization are. That man individually can be good or bad, but man collectively is always bad. All the time, every day, all day. And so there's so much that God has conveyed to us that would be the antithesis of Eden joy. And knowing how to celebrate the Mikra, knowing how to become part of the Torah, being introduced to Yahweh's name, knowing that we're returning to Eden, that's not going to be really helpful when you're already there. When Yahweh becomes dad, you're on,
and you're already home.
You're right there, sitting in his lap, taking a walk with him, and him introducing you to some life that you hadn't even considered before, teaching you how to manipulate DNA. You really don't need an introduction at that point. When you've availed yourself Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and you're immortal, you've been perfected, and you've been adopted into the family, there's really not a whole lot of benefit of knowing, well, I become immortal, and I become perfected, and I'm adopted on Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. You're there. Okay? God does not need to explain, when you're in Eden, why religion is bad. Because it doesn't exist. So there's no point, and it would be counterproductive to bring the existing Torah into our lives for God to say, oh, I'm going to bring a Torah. Well, God's not adding to the Torah. He's not, there's no reason for him to augment it if we're in the same position. What he wrote is timeless. It seems so obvious to me that as we camp out with God and we become on the same footing as Adam and Chawah with Yahweh, that what he's doing is just as he did for them. I'm going to give you some instruction, some guidance.
But you could say that the new Torah is you still have to acquire knowledge and skill to guide your life. So that's all it is. It's not rejection of that served its purpose. It's just now this is what serves the purpose for us to work up to a seventh dimensional plane.
Let's just say that in this world you have a chance, you have the opportunity to accept or reject the Torah.
Okay.
You have the opportunity to say, I was having lunch with a friend. He said, it would really be nice to know that there was a God. He said, I'm a spiritual person. I believe there is a God, but I have no way to prove that He exists and that sort of thing. And I said, it's just because the difference in you and me is I've invested the time to know Him. It's not hard to know, but this individual has chosen not to explore the Torah. And the difference is we have chosen to explore the Torah and integrate it into our lives. But once we have done that, once we have accepted it, we have integrated it into our lives, then there is no reason to have the choice to exclude it. Right? So where Yahweh can't place His Torah inside of us now because we must have the opportunity to ignore it and to reject it for free will to matter. Once we've made that choice, He can incorporate His guidance into our lives. I mean, there is none of us would say, I think I'm going to go and explore the universe and deal with cosmic rays and black holes and the atomic fusion that's taking place within stars. I understand it's a big universe. I won't get lost out there. I'm just going to go off and do it on my own. Thank you very much, but Dad, but I really don't need your instructions. Okay.
Hardly.
Yeah, come on. You've just gone. It's dazzling beyond comprehension. I mean, it would be for us if God did not equip us to handle it. Going from 3.5 dimensions to 4, we'd go blind. We'd go deaf. The noise, the brilliance of the light would be so painful we'd go blind and deaf instantly. We'd be so disoriented. Our minds would be incapable of coping with just going from 3.5 to 4 dimensions. It's so much more information and so many more choices that we aren't in a position to even remotely deal with it the way we're currently equipped. God has to provide us directions and on how to get just to the point where we can maneuver and deal with an all-time environment and no longer being stuck in time. And then to add the 5th and the 6th and the 7th dimension, without it, we're hopelessly overwhelmed. And listen, if God gives us access to DNA and says, well, boy, you can have fun with that. Or there's no reason to think that as stunningly attractive, I mean, I can just speak from a guy's point of view because I'm a guy, stunningly beautiful, sensuous, and appealing that God made woman. That there's any chance you say, okay, that was just a tease. We're going to have none of that stuff in eternity. I know I called it paradise and Eden and all that kind of stuff, but no, we're just not going there again. It's not His nature. And so we're going to have enjoyment in eternity, but the riskiest thing in life is to become vulnerable in a loving relationship and be rejected. And the last thing, and look at the human family. I don't think there's even 1% of human families that aren't broken on one or more levels. With our spouses, with our siblings, with our children, or with our parents. And most are broken on multiple levels. That's the last thing we need is to engage in familial kind of relationships and then be broken. I'm going to be happy to have God said, this is kind of where you want to engage, what you don't want to do here, and how you want to approach these things so that you get the asher, the most enjoyment out of it, and yet have the least chance of screwing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So God has to, absolutely has to, inscribe his teaching inside of us. And so he's telling us here, listen, when I bring you back to Eden, it is going to be such a mind-blowing, expansive experience. Don't worry, I've got you covered. I'm going to share a Torah teaching. This is the parallel to Yirmiyah 31. That new teaching is going to come forth from Yahowah. And it's going to be how to not just explore the universe, not just how to enjoy the relationship with him and our fellow brothers and sisters in the covenant. But it's not just how to keep ourselves out of trouble. It's going to be the tools we're going to need to just to cope with the expansive nature of 7 dimensions. You know, I've heard and read articles about what would happen if you took a person the way we are now and just took us into the fullness of the 4th dimension. And as I said, the noise, the amount of information, the amount of choices, the brilliance of it would be such that every aspect of our perceptions and our being would be instantly overwhelmed, painfully overwhelmed. So this is why God is doing that. And I will instantly, energetically, and emphatically establish, raga, that is a good term, I will promptly and without hesitation cause and provide renewal and favor, hiful and perfect, ongoing, continuous. The speaker is doing this on behalf of the one person listening to them, and the hiful goes one step further. It makes the person who is listening a secondary subject. So it causes the person who responds and listens to not just benefit from the action of the verb, but to benefit such that they become ever more like the person who is speaking to them. And I will instantly, energetically, and emphatically establish raga, my means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes. Mishpat Ani. Okay, well, now we know why Yahweh is going to give us a Torah teaching right then. Because instantly, emphatically, at that very moment, without hesitation, if we didn't have it, we would be so overwhelmed, so pained, so out of kilter that our minds would be blown. Let me give you just a little tiny snippet of this. In Russia, and the first time that I visited Russia, where it was still absolutely communist, socialist governments are hugely impoverished. There's no freedom of choice, but there's also no freedom of enterprise. And so you would stand in a line to buy a loaf of bread. You didn't get to choose if you wanted wheat bread or white bread or rye bread or sourdough bread or French bread or Italian bread, a croissant or a baguette. You didn't get the choice, bread or no bread. And you had to stand in a line to get the bread. If you wanted toothpaste, there would be the state-sponsored toothpaste, unappealing, just there. Yogurt, probably not, but if there was, it'd be one flavor and one brand. Now imagine someone like that walking into a Western supermarket, and there are 30 brands of yogurt, each with 20 different flavors. There are 20 different brands of toothpaste, each with 20 different variations of it. There isn't a toothbrush. There's 100 toothbrushes. There isn't a loaf of bread. There's 100 of them. And there isn't one store. There's hundreds of them, each with all of these choices. And it's mind-boggling. It's the person goes and they don't, they just, like the cereal aisle. Cereal or no cereal? Versus, oh my goodness, I can have cornflakes with sprinkles of sugar or chocolate or plain or big or wheat or rye, or I can have any kind of grain. I can have any kind of flavor. I mean, you name it. All the way to some of them, come with leprechauns. And tricks are for kids. I mean,
and toys inside.
You can go all the way to buying mouthfuls of sugar and food coloring. And so it just is so overwhelming. It's actually painful and it's debilitating. And that's the difference. And so, like out here in the boondocks, we don't have standard broadcast television. So I have this little box that gives me access to any network feed anywhere in the world, and really all programming. And I think there are just shy of 9,000 channels. Well, I almost never use it because there's just too daggone many options. It takes too long to decide what you want to. Sometimes I say, okay, I just need to watch a little television. I'll wind down and go to sleep. Well, 9 times out of 10, I don't get beyond just looking at what the choices are. I said, okay, I'm just too tired. I'm just going to go to bed. It works beautifully.
Look at the pattern like we did when we were kids.
Yeah, I never get to the program. Yes. And so that is where we're headed in 7 dimensions. So God emphatically, instantly has to provide this. What is the purpose of his teaching? He says it right here. So that we have the means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes. Well, if you're going to have lots of people going to lots of places doing lots of things, disputes are going to arise. When Yahweh issued his Torah, he says, I'm going to establish the Shabbat to resolve disputes. Well, Mishpat is based on Shabbat. It's Shabbat plus the interrogatory that says, question the who, the what, the why, the where of decision-making. And so God's new Torah, his Torah teaching that he's going to give us instantly and emphatically, is going to enable us to make decisions. When we go to the planet Isle, and rather than one Earth, there are 20 billion planets we have to choose from, we're going to be able to make the decision.
Boy, what a smorgasbord.
Yes, and when we look at DNA and say, okay, there's 10 to the 100th power options here, it's going to help us resolve the dispute as to what we should do. Or if Kirk, you and I say, I think today is a day to play a round of golf, and I say, great, let's go out and play Pebble Beach. You say, and I want to go play Old Head. And Old Head is on the Irish coast, Pebble Beach on the California coast. And we just can't resolve which way we're going to go today. And then somebody says, let's go play Augusta National. And somebody else wants to play Pine Valley. Yeah, you've got to have a way to resolve this. I mean, these are big issues. These are big issues. So,
got plenty of time, man.
say there you go. So there you go. So you've already got the Torah teaching.
I'll be a Shabbat. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, we're just going to go play them all. So God is giving us His teaching, His guidance, so that we can exercise good judgment. That's it. Simple as that. Without good information, you can't make a good decision. One of my best friends in this island, his wife is an extreme liberal. So we have a problem where she is of the belief that evidence does not matter. It's what you believe, what you feel, but evidence and reason are absolutely counterproductive. As a matter of fact, if you quote facts and you use evidence and reason as opposed to ethnicity to make decisions, you're a racist, from her point of view.
No.
You know, she's unwilling to even consider information. She considers herself to be superior, and yet she's not smart enough to realize that without evidence and reason, we have nothing. Well, God is telling us that for us to make good decisions, we have to have good information, and He's going to provide it. So He's providing teaching and guidance so we can make quality decisions. We can exercise good judgment. And He says that He will approach as light on behalf of the family. Clearly, as light. This is law-or. So if God's going to approach as light, and He made us in His image, and He is taking us out to explore a universe crafted as Eden, what do you think we're going to be?
We'll have to be light.
We're going to be light, too.
It's the only way to travel.
Yes, which means that we are immortal, that we're perfect, that we are the speed of light times the speed of light automatically superior, greater than we are now. Energy equals MC squared. We are now a physical being, and to become light, we at the very least we have to be multiplied by the speed of light times the speed of light, the square of the speed of light. So we become enormously greater than we are now, and becoming light not only makes us immortal, but enables us to actually explore this universe. You cannot explore the universe if you're not light. The distances are too great. So there is just so much here. We've spent, the entire program on one statement.
First.
But it's a really good one. It's a really good one.
Amazing.
Yeah, Yahweh did. I would like to recap what Yahweh said through His prophet Yeshua, and Yeshua 51. It's from the beginning. Isn't this interesting? We begin where He has taken us. Reminds me of returning to Eden, doesn't it? Choose to listen to me of your own free will and actually pay attention so that you hear what I have to say. Shama El Ani. Those of you who are genuinely pursuing Radaf, vindication, by being correct, by being right, considering what is honest and fair, accurate, and verifiable. If you want to be like Dode, Sadak, right, vindicated, choose to listen of your own free will to Yahweh. Those seeking to learn about and know Yahowah should choose to be observant so as to develop the proper respect and respond to the godly rock from which you were hewn, set apart from and engraved, and to God's excavating of the cistern from which you were picked out. Choose to be observant so that you can properly interpret and understand by looking to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who labored for a long time expecting you. Oh my. The path to God is through the covenant. The covenant is presented through Abraham and Sarah. For indeed, he was just one when I invited him to meet with me, so that I could kneel down to lift him up and bless him. Now you know the purpose. And if you just take a moment and think, where was he? Why was he in a position where God reached out to him and no one else? Because he walked away from Babylon. Because he walked away from his country. Because he walked away from the influences of man.
And family.
Yep. So that's where he was. And God chose him, met with him, and then knelt down to lift him up. Then he says, I tremendously enriched him. Again, I want to remind you, where else other than through his prophets do you hear God speak to you in first person?
Obviously nowhere.
Then I tremendously enriched and empowered him, making him far greater than he had been. The purpose of the covenant is distant. Indeed, Yahweh will comfort and console Zion. He will be demonstrating compassion for all of her destroyed and depopulated places. We're now going forward in time to a point in time where Zion, the heart of Israel, is depopulated and destroyed. And even her lifeless places where the word is questioned, he will cause to be like Eden. Great pleasure and joy. Has this happened? No. Will it happen? No. Absolutely yes. Which means that we are returned to the conditions that were experienced in Eden, great joy. And also, her land, Arabs, have deforested and depopulated, will be seen as the Gan, protective garden of Yahowah. This time, Eden represents great joy, but the Gan, this protective place that is conducive to life, has a new name. It's the Gan Yahowah. What do you think the Gan Yahowah is? Do you think the Gan Yahowah is fenced in and limited to a certain little section of the earth?
No, it's the whole ball of wax.
I think so. You know, could it be Zion that's going to be Eden and it's a hypercube, so it appears infinite? Yeah, sure. Could it be all of Yehuda? Yeah. Could it be all of Israel? Most certainly. Could it be the entire planet Earth? Mm-hmm. Could it be the entire universe? Tell me, what would be the purpose of creating a universe this size, this interesting, if the Garden of Yahweh
not
didn't
explore
include it all? Why would Yahweh want to create a new universe with us as witnesses if it wasn't all for us to explore? And also, her lands that Arabs have deforested and depopulated will be seen as the protective garden of Yahweh. Oh, sorry, are you Allah lovers? It turned out to be wrong. Overwhelming happiness and great joy. Boy, the same thing is true for the Jesus freaks.
The Jesus
people. The dead God on a stick's not going to do you any damn good. Overwhelming happiness and joy. Shamak will be found and experienced in her. There has been no time in the history of humankind where there has been overwhelming happiness and joy in Zion, in Jerusalem, in Yehuda, in Israel, or on the planet Earth. No time in human history, other than a brief moment, however long that moment may have been, in the garden of great joy. Overwhelming happiness and joy will be found and experienced in her. Songs of thanksgiving and the sound of singing with the accompaniment of musical instruments, which means that we will be able absolutely and unequivocally to be able to transition from an energy-based being to a light-based being. Sorrow and mourning for the dead shall disappear, which means that the entirety of the Torah and the prophets are no longer going to be part of our lives, because there's a lot of dying and a lot of sorrow in those books. Choose to listen attentively to me, my people. Also, in addition, hear what I have to say, people of other nations who have gathered unto me, because indeed a Torah teaching will come forth from me, and I will instantly, energetically, and emphatically establish renewal and restore with my means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes, approaching as light for the family. It's marvelous.
Now that instantaneous stuff, will that happen to us on Towrah? Won't that be just like that too?
Well, we aren't told anything about Towrah other than it is a harvest. We know what the word means, and so we can determine what it is that we ought to be doing on Towrah, which is to share both sides of the Torah, which is the part that says God is calling out to us. He is inviting us to be part of his family. This is what he has to say in that regard, but also a warning that being religious and political will estrange you from him, and that you ought not rely on man. So we know that about it. When we are harvested, God does not say, you're going to immediately experience eating. He doesn't say that you're going to be in a position of total joy. When the true harvest occurs, there's the earth that goes through an exceedingly painful period. God has never worked alone, and I don't expect him to be working alone. And so he values work, and he likes working through his creation. I can't imagine that he's not engaging through Dode during this period, and I can't imagine that he's going to change. And say that those of you who are here now and part of my family, go off while I deal with these last 3, 4, 5 years. So, and then we enter the Millennial Shabbat, where there is guidance required and work to be done. So, no, I don't actually think, Kirk, that we enter the final phase of eternity instantly on Towrah. My hope had been, and I have no reason to doubt that this is possible, that because we've instantly become a timeless being, and that I expect that we will be taken to 7 dimensions, that we will have the opportunity to explore this existing universe with some limitations. Can't mess things up. But so I can see that there will be some opportunities, but these are really trying times for Yahweh. Man's going to be at his all-time worst. And so I think that we might go off and
we will get to engage with him.
So I really think that we will do what families do when times get tough. We'll rally together.
That
We'll
sounds
be
better
supportive.
than us actually taking off. To me, I mean,
Yeah, we have plenty of time to
going
take
off
off.
and coming back.
Yeah, we have plenty
you
of
got
time
all
to take
eternity to do that.
Yeah, right. We don't have to go off and explore. It sounds fun, and maybe we'll be able to do that. I anticipate we will. But still, my sense is that we're going to rally around Dad. We're gonna act as a family, and I think that's better in a way. It's good to have a purpose, right?
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
good to belong to a family. It's good to have a common cause when that cause is the ultimate in good.
You want to participate. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to participate. Yeah, I like it when my thinking resonates with you. I like it when I read something and like it was Terry D, I think, was the one that sent it to me today. And he was talking about where the world is headed and in the milestone we just passed here in America. And she says, while I'm sad for myself, I'm mostly sad for God. Yeah. And so I do think it's a time to rally around and support. Now, clearly, listen, even elevated, God doesn't need you and me to for moral support. He doesn't need that. But
need and enjoy are two different things.
But I think he would enjoy it. I do. I mean, I think that he's been neglected and alone so long that he'd say, "Yeah, it's let's do this together."
Say, cool.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it'll be just a tremendous privilege to see things from even more clearly from God's perspective and to be make a contribution to what He's trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. Just as when we study His Torah and prophets, we see things more clearly from His perspective and we make a contribution to what He's trying to achieve. It might not be a whole lot different than what we're experiencing now.
Just hang out.
And that's good enough with me. We get to hang out, we get to share, we get to enrich one another, we get to become ever more like Dad. That's all good. We're already part of that program, and so, as far as we're concerned, more of it is wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's now late here, and
you have stuff to do.
When I look out of these eyes, I feel quite young, but I'm not quite as young as I used to be. And one of the things that I have found living here in this tropical paradise, the parts that aren't spoiled, and most of them are not, is that my life is more in sync with the natural design. I very seldom get up after sunrise. I enjoy the sunrise. I get up with the sun. And quite honestly, when the sun goes down, I'm ready to wind down my day. And so it's on a different clock that we operate on. And I rather like this clock. There are people who I know like the night. In fact, in this particular island, the native population thinks that the day begins at 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they go out to the nightclubs and bars, and they'll stay there until the sun rises and then go home and go to sleep. That's not my cadence. That's not my rhythm. Mm-hmm. I like the light. I like the warmth of the sun. I like what you can see. I'm so much more observant. I'm so much more upbeat in the light than I am in the darkness. So I'm not bothered by the darkness. I'm just more energized by the light.
Yeah.
And so that's my cadence, and it has been dark here for a while. So it's time for me to say.
So go to bed.
Yeah. Good night. Yes. And Shabbat Shalom to all.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
Good night.